The flash of cameras was blinding, but 17-year-old Maya Chen didn't flinch. She stood at the podium in her white graduation gown, valedictorian medal gleaming against her chest, and said the words that would shatter Silicon Valley's most celebrated success story. The homeless man who sleeps behind the 7-Eleven on Castro Street taught me calculus. The press conference erupted. Stanford's admissions director, who'd been standing beside her to celebrate her perfect SAT scores and full scholarship, actually stepped backward. Maya's guidance counselor grabbed her arm, whispering urgently, "What are you doing?" But Maya kept talking, her voice steady, even as tears started sliding down her cheeks. His name is Dr. Jonathan Pierce. 15 years ago, he was the youngest tenured professor in MIT's mathematics department. He had a wife, a daughter, and a future that should have been brilliant. He lost everything because of my mother, and I need to tell you why. The reporter from TechCrunch lowered her phone, suddenly more interested in this story than the feel-good narrative about a low-income student beating the odds. "What do you mean he lost everything for your mother?" Maya took a shaky breath. Because she was 16, because he was her teacher, and because he went to prison to protect her from something far worse than anyone knew. Maya had been walking home from her after-school tutoring job when she first saw him. Not really saw him. She'd walked past that particular homeless man hundreds of times. He was a fixture behind the 7-Eleven, always with his cardboard sign and a battered notebook, scribbling something she'd never bothered to look at closely. But that Tuesday in March, her calculus textbook slipped from her overstuffed backpack, papers scattering across the sidewalk. The homeless man moved faster than she expected, helping gather the worksheets before the wind could claim them. His hands were filthy, fingernails caked with grime, but they moved with surprising precision. He paused, staring at one of her homework problems. His lips moved silently. "You've made an error in your second derivative," he said quietly. Maya froze. His voice wasn't what she expected. It was educated, careful, completely at odds with his appearance. "Excuse me." He pointed with a trembling finger that might have been from cold or withdrawal or both. "Here. You've treated this as a simple chain rule problem, but you're missing the implicit differentiation component. The answer should be," he closed his eyes, "negative 2x over the quantity. X squared plus 1 to the 3/2 power." Maya stared at the problem, then at her textbook's answer key, which she'd been too frustrated to check. He was right. Completely right. "How did you?" She looked at him properly for the first time. Beneath the weathered skin and overgrown beard, beneath the layers of donated clothes and the smell of the street, there was something else. His eyes were a startling clear blue, and behind the exhaustion in them was an intelligence that made her breath catch. "I used to teach," he said simply, then turned away, shuffling back to his spot against the wall. But Maya couldn't let it go. The next day, she brought him coffee and a sandwich. "Can you help me with something?" He looked at her warily. "I don't want your pity. It's not pity. I'm failing AP Calculus. My teacher gave up on me after the last test. I need a 5 on the AP exam to keep my scholarship to Stanford, and I'm barely passing. I'll pay you. $20 an hour." Something flickered in those blue eyes. "I don't need money." "Then what do you need?" He was quiet for a long moment. "Someone to remember that I wasn't always this." That's how it started. Every Tuesday and Thursday after her shift at the tutoring center, Maya would sit on the cold pavement behind the 7-Eleven with a man whose name she didn't know, learning mathematics from someone who made it sound like poetry. He never used her textbook. He taught from memory, drawing figures in the air with his fingers when he couldn't find clean paper. He'd ask her questions that seemed impossible, then guide her through solutions with a patience that made her wonder how anyone who could teach like this had ended up here. Math isn't about memorizing formulas, he told her one evening as the spring sun set behind the buildings. It's about seeing patterns. The universe speaks in mathematics. Once you learn the language, you can hear it everywhere. Did you teach at a college? Maya asked carefully, his expression closed. A long time ago. She didn't push, but she started noticing things. The way he unconsciously corrected her grammar. The way he could reference obscure mathematical proofs from memory. The Latin phrases that slipped into his explanations. The scar on his left wrist that looked deliberate. And then, one Thursday in April, everything changed. Maya arrived for their session to find him gone. In his place was a different homeless man, younger, with wild eyes and aggressive energy. You looking for the professor? The professor? John, cops took him 2 hours ago. Some lady reported him for harassing students. The man laughed bitterly. Wasn't harassing nobody. But you know how it is. Homeless near a school means trouble. Maya's heart stopped. Where did they take him? County lockup, probably. They'll process him, charge him with something, and he'll be back in 3 days. That's how it always goes. But Maya couldn't wait 3 days. She had her AP exam in 6 weeks. More than that, something about this felt wrong. She'd seen the way people looked at her teacher, at the professor, when she sat with him. The disgust, the fear, the way mothers pulled their children closer when walking past. She'd never asked his full name, never asked why he was here. She realized with shocking clarity that she'd been using him, taking what he offered without seeing him as fully human. That night, Maya did something she'd never done before. She asked her mother about homeless people near the 7-Eleven. Her mother, Lily Chen, was folding laundry in their cramped 2-bedroom apartment, the TV playing a Chinese drama she'd seen a dozen times. She was 41 but looked older, the kind of tired that came from 2 decades of night shifts as a hospital custodian. Why do you ask? Her mother's hands paused on a pillowcase. There's a man who helps me with math. He's really smart, Mom, but the police took him. The pillowcase slipped from her mother's hands. When Lily looked up, her face had gone completely white. What man? What does he look like? I don't know. Maybe 50. Tall. Blue eyes. He speaks like a professor. Her mother sat down heavily. Blue eyes, she whispered, after all this time. Mom, what's wrong? Lily Chen started crying. Not the quiet tears of sadness, but huge, racking sobs that shook her whole body. Maya rushed to her side, terrified. Her mother never cried. Not when they'd been evicted from their last apartment. Not when Maya's father had died. Not when the hospital cut her hours. Never. Mom, please, what's happening? Her mother looked up at her, and Maya saw something she'd never seen before in those dark eyes. Guilt so profound, it seemed to hollow her out. The man teaching you calculus, his name is Jonathan Pierce, and you need to know the truth about why he's here. What came next would rewrite everything Maya thought she knew about her mother's past. Lily Chen wasn't always Lily Chen. 25 years ago, she was Lily Wong, a 16-year-old junior at Mission High School, with a gift for mathematics and a home life that was slowly killing her. Her father drank. Her mother worked 3 jobs and pretended not to notice. And Lily's uncle, her father's brother who lived with them, looked at her in ways that made her skin crawl. She told no one. Not her school counselor. Not her best friend. Not even the teacher who noticed how she flinched when male students got too close. She just disappeared into numbers, into the clean logic of equations that always had right answers, unlike the messy horror of her real life. Then Jonathan Pierce arrived at Mission High as a student teacher. He was 24, doing his practicum while finishing his PhD at MIT. He was assigned to teach remedial algebra, but one look at Lily's transcripts, and he saw what no one else had. Brilliance buried under trauma. He started tutoring her after school, just math at first. Then he noticed other things. How she never wanted to go home. How she showed up with bruises she explained away. How her hands trembled when she thought no one was watching. "He saved my life," Lily told Maya, her voice raw. "Not in the way you think. He never touched me. Never said anything inappropriate. He was just kind. He saw me as a person, not a thing. And when I finally broke down and told him what was happening at home, he believed me." Maya's hands had gone cold. "What was happening, Mom?" Her mother closed her eyes. "My uncle. For 2 years. And when I told Jonathan, he didn't doubt me for a second. He said he'd help me, that we'd go to the police together. But then..." Lily's voice cracked. "My uncle found out. I don't know how. Maybe he saw us talking. Maybe he followed me. But he came to the school. He threatened Jonathan. Told him that if he said anything, he'd claim Jonathan was the one abusing me. That he'd make sure Jonathan went to prison as a pedophile." "That's insane," Maya whispered. "Why would anyone believe that?" "Because Jonathan was young. Because he was my teacher. Because my uncle had friends in the police department from his construction company. And because I was terrified and 16, and my uncle said if I didn't back up his story, he'd kill my mother." Maya felt sick. "What happened?" "Jonathan told me to run. He gave me $3,000, his entire savings, and the address of a women's shelter in San Jose. He said he'd handle my uncle, that he'd make sure I was safe, but I had to leave immediately. So I did. I left that night." Lily wiped her eyes. "I found out later what happened. Jonathan went to the police. He reported everything, the abuse, the threats, all of it. But my uncle was smart. He'd already filed a complaint claiming Jonathan had been having an inappropriate relationship with me. He had witnesses from the school, other students who'd seen us together after hours. He had a diary he'd forged in my handwriting, describing a relationship that never happened." "That's impossible," Maya said. "You could have testified. You could have told the truth." "I was in a shelter, terrified, and convinced my uncle would find me and kill my mother. By the time the trial happened, I was so broken I couldn't speak. My uncle's lawyers said I was too traumatized to testify. They made it look like Jonathan had manipulated me, that I was protecting my abuser." Lily's voice dropped to almost nothing. "Jonathan Pierce went to prison for 7 years for crimes he didn't commit. MIT revoked his PhD. His wife divorced him. His daughter, she would be about your age now, stopped speaking to him. Everything he'd built, every dream he had, destroyed. And he did it knowing what would happen. He did it to save me." The apartment was completely silent except for the sound of both of them crying. "When did you find out he was homeless?" Maya finally asked. "I didn't. Not until tonight. When he got out of prison, I tried to find him. I wanted to tell him the truth, to help him clear his name. But he disappeared. I assumed he'd left California, started over somewhere else. I never imagined..." She gestured helplessly. "Behind a 7-Eleven. All this time." Maya stood up. Her whole body felt strange, like she was watching herself from outside. "We have to help him." "How?" "Maya, his record will never be expunged. The case was too high profile. Even if I testified now, even if I told the truth, it's been 25 years. And your uncle, is he still alive?" Her mother nodded. "He's in Sacramento, successful contractor. Married. Has children of his own now." The disgust in her voice was corrosive. "I couldn't face him. Couldn't risk him finding us. So I changed my name, moved us to this neighborhood, and tried to forget." "But you never forgot," Maya said softly. "No. Every day for 25 years, I thought about him. The man who sacrificed everything to save a girl he barely knew." Maya grabbed her jacket. "Then let's stop talking and start doing something." Getting Jonathan Pierce out of county lockup took 72 hours, and every favor Maya's guidance counselor owed to anyone. By the time they released him, Maya had done enough research on wrongful conviction cases to make her eyes burn, and had used her one college interview opportunity to meet with a Stanford law professor who specialized in false imprisonment. She was waiting outside the jail when they released him at 6 a.m. on a Tuesday. He looked smaller somehow, more fragile than the man who'd taught her the beauty of differential equations. When he saw her, his expression cycled through surprise, recognition, and finally something that looked like shame. "You shouldn't be here," he said quietly. "I know who you are. I know what happened. And I know my mother." He stopped walking. For a long moment he just stared at her, and she watched understanding move across his face like clouds. "Lily's daughter." It wasn't a question. "You have her eyes. She told me everything, about my uncle, about what you did." Jonathan Pierce's legs seemed to give out. He sat down hard on the concrete bench outside the jail, his hands shaking. Is your mother okay?" "She's alive. She's safe. She works at a hospital. And she spent 25 years thinking about you." "She shouldn't." His voice was hoarse. "She should have forgotten. Built a life. I never wanted her to—" He stopped, swallowing hard. "I made my choice. I knew what I was doing." "Did you?" Maya sat beside him. "Did you know you'd end up here? Did you know your daughter would hate you? Did you know you'd lose everything?" "Yes." The word was simple, absolute. "I knew all of it. And I'd do it again." Maya pulled out her phone and opened a folder she'd prepared. "This is Dr. Sarah Chen at Stanford Law. She thinks we have a case. Not to overturn your conviction. That's probably impossible. But to get your story out. To clear your name publicly, even if the legal record stands." He was already shaking his head. "No." "Why not?" "Because your uncle is still out there. Because your mother has built a life in hiding. Because the moment this becomes public, he'll find her. Find you." He looked at her directly, and she saw the calculation in his eyes, the same methodical problem-solving he applied to mathematics. "I won't put either of you at risk." "You don't get to make that choice anymore," Maya said firmly. "You made your choice 25 years ago. Now it's our turn." But Jonathan stood up, wavering slightly. "I appreciate what you're trying to do, but the answer is no. Stay away from me, Maya. Go to Stanford. Build something beautiful with your life. That's the only payment I want for those tutoring sessions." He started walking away, back toward the streets that had become his world. Maya called after him. "What if I told you my mother wants to see you?" He stopped but didn't turn around. "She's been carrying this for 25 years, Dr. Pierce. Don't you think she deserves to say thank you? To tell you what happened to her, how she survived, how she became a mother?" "I can't," he whispered. "Can't or won't." He turned then, and the pain in his face was so raw it made her gasp. "Both. All of it. Maya, I spent 7 years in prison. Do you know what happens to convicted child predators in prison? Do you know what I endured?" His voice cracked. "I survived by forgetting I was human, by disappearing inside mathematics, inside pure thought. The moment I see your mother, the moment I let myself remember what I was fighting for, I'll break, and I can't break. Not now, not after holding on this long." Maya felt tears on her cheeks. "What if breaking is how you start to heal?" "I don't want to heal," he said it with finality. "I want to disappear. I want to finish what I started." He walked away, and this time Maya let him go. But she wasn't done. What Maya discovered in the next 3 weeks would expose a conspiracy that went far deeper than one predator's lies. The first person Maya contacted was Jonathan Pierce's daughter. It took some searching. She'd changed her name after her father's conviction. But Maya finally tracked down Dr. Emily Pierce Watson, now a physics professor at UC Berkeley. The email Maya sent was simple. "Your father didn't do what they said he did. I can prove it. Please call me." Emily called within an hour. "Who are you?" Maya explained everything, her identity, her mother's story, the truth about what happened. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. "Do you know what it's like?" Emily finally said, her voice shaking. "To be 9 years old and have FBI agents search your house, to have kids at school call your father a pedophile, to watch your mother drink herself to death over 5 years because she couldn't process the betrayal? I know it was horrible. You don't know anything." Emily's voice turned sharp. "My father confessed. He pled guilty to avoid trial. He admitted to having an inappropriate relationship with a student. I read the transcript. He said the words himself." Maya's stomach dropped. "What? You think I didn't investigate? You think I didn't hire lawyers? Didn't beg him to fight? He refused. He said he was guilty, that he deserved everything that happened. So either you're lying, or my father is a coward who let his family be destroyed for nothing." "He was protecting us," Maya said desperately. "My uncle threatened to kill my mother. Don't you understand? He took a plea deal to end it quickly, to get my mother out of danger. Then he chose a stranger over his own daughter." Emily's voice had gone cold. "And I stopped being his daughter the day he made that choice. Don't contact me again." The line went dead. Maya stared at her phone, feeling like the ground had opened beneath her. She'd been so focused on the nobility of Jonathan's sacrifice that she hadn't considered what it had cost everyone else, his wife, his daughter, the life they should have had. But there was another angle she hadn't fully explored. If her uncle had fabricated evidence, who had helped him? How had he gotten students to lie? How had he forged a diary convincing enough to fool prosecutors? Maya started investigating. She pulled old yearbooks from Mission High's library. She interviewed former students, now in their 40s, many of whom barely remembered the case. But a few did remember, and what they told her changed everything. "Your uncle was connected," a former classmate told her over coffee. The woman, Sandra Martinez, had been a senior when Lily was a junior. His construction company had contracts with the school district. He knew the principal, knew half the school board. When the story about Mr. Pierce came out, there was pressure from the top to make it go away fast. Pressure to convict him? Pressure to avoid a trial? The school district didn't want testimony about abuse happening under their watch. Your uncle told them he'd sue for negligence, claim the school allowed a predatory teacher access to students. So they made a deal. Pierce pleads guilty, does his time, and the school avoids a lawsuit. Everyone wins, except Pierce. Maya felt sick. The witnesses? The students who said they saw inappropriate behavior? Sandra looked uncomfortable. "I was one of them. Your uncle approached me personally, said he'd pay for my college if I testified that I'd seen Pierce and Lily alone together after hours in suggestive situations. I was 17, from a poor family, desperate. So I said yes. You lied. I was never called to testify. Pierce took the plea. But yes, I would have lied. And I've lived with that guilt every day since." Sandra's eyes were wet. "I convinced myself it didn't matter, because he'd confessed anyway. That he must have been guilty of something, or he wouldn't have pled. But I knew. Deep down, I knew." Maya recorded everything. She found 2 other students who admitted similar stories. Her uncle had paid them, promised them things, threatened them. He'd built a case out of lies and bribes and fear. But the more evidence Maya gathered, the more dangerous her situation became. Her mother started receiving strange calls, hang-ups in the middle of the night, a black SUV parked outside their apartment for hours at a time, messages on social media from anonymous accounts asking, about old family business. "He knows," Lily said one evening, her voice tight with fear. "Your uncle knows we're digging into this. Maya, you need to stop." "I'm not stopping." "Then he'll hurt us. He has money now. Power. He can make us disappear." "Let him try." Maya's voice was harder than she knew it could be. "I'm not 16 and afraid. I'm not you, hiding for 25 years. I'm done letting him win." Her mother grabbed her shoulders. "You don't understand what he's capable of." "Then tell me. Tell me everything." "No more secrets, Mom." What Lily Chen revealed that night would prove that some monsters hide in plain sight for decades, waiting. Lily Chen's uncle, Maya's great-uncle Robert Wong, wasn't just a predator. He was part of a network. Through the 1980s and 90s, his construction company had employed dozens of undocumented workers, many of them young women from Southeast Asia who spoke no English and had no legal protections. "He trafficked them," Lily said, the words coming out like poison. "Not just for labor, for other things. And I stumbled onto it when I was 15. Maya felt the room tilt. "What do you mean?" "I found documents in his office, passports held as collateral, pay stubs showing hours that were never actually paid, photos of young women in situations that—" Her mother couldn't finish. "I was going to go to the police, but he caught me. That's when the abuse started. That's when he made it clear that if I ever spoke, my mother would be the first to disappear." Jonathan knew about this. Only pieces. I told him I'd found something illegal. I showed him some documents I'd copied. He was going to take them to the authorities. But when Robert threatened him, when he manufactured the abuse case, Jonathan understood. He was fighting someone with resources, connections, and absolutely no morality. So he fell on his sword to buy me time to escape. And I ran instead of fighting. Maya's mind was reeling. "Where are the documents now?" "Gone. I destroyed them because I was terrified. The only evidence left is in Robert's company records, and those are buried behind lawyers and shell corporations." Her mother's face was gray. "Maya, this isn't just about clearing Jonathan's name anymore. You're threatening a man who was killed to protect his secrets. You need to stop." But Maya had already made her decision. She contacted the Stanford law professor again, this time with the full story. She reached out to immigration advocacy groups. She started building a case not just for Jonathan Pierce's innocence, but for Robert Wong's crimes. And then her uncle made his move. It happened on a Thursday evening. Maya was walking home from the library when a black SUV pulled up beside her. Two men got out, professional, polite, terrifying in their calm. "Maya Chen, your uncle would like to speak with you." She ran. Years of running track and PE gave her enough speed to make it to a busy street, to a crowd of people. The men didn't follow into the crowd, but she saw them watching, waiting. She called the police, filed a report, but without evidence of an actual crime, there was nothing they could do. "Someone wanting to talk to you isn't illegal," the officer said sympathetically. That night, Maya didn't go home. She stayed with a friend, then another friend, moving every few days. Her mother went to stay with a coworker. They were running again, just like Lily had run 25 years ago. But this time, Maya had something her mother hadn't: social media. She created a Twitter thread that went viral in 48 hours. She told the entire story: her mother's abuse, Jonathan's sacrifice, her uncle's crimes, the conspiracy to convict an innocent man. She named names. She posted documents that the advocacy groups had helped her obtain through FOIA requests. She made it impossible to bury. The response was explosive. News outlets picked up the story. "Free Jonathan Pierce" started trending. Immigration lawyers began investigating Wong Construction. Robert Wong's current wife saw the thread and contacted Maya privately with a message that made everything click into place. He did the same thing to me. I have evidence. Let's talk. But the moment Maya was about to feel victorious, disaster struck. Jonathan Pierce tried to kill himself. Maya got the call from a shelter worker at 3 a.m. He'd slit his wrists in a gas station bathroom, was found in time by chance. He was in County General, stable but under psychiatric hold. Maya went to the hospital immediately, her mother beside her for the first time. They waited in the ER until a social worker would let them see him. When they finally entered his room, he looked smaller than ever, bandages bright white against his gray skin. "Why?" Maya asked, her voice breaking. He turned his head away. "Because you're destroying yourself for me. Because your mother is in danger again. Because I'm not worth this. I've never been worth this." "That's not true," Lily said. She moved to his bedside, and Maya watched her mother look at this broken man with such tenderness it hurt. "Jonathan, look at me." He did. And Maya saw something pass between them, recognition of a shared trauma, a bond forged in the worst moment of both their lives. "You saved me," Lily said simply. "I built a life because of you. I had a daughter because of you. Everything good in my world exists because you cared about a 16-year-old girl you barely knew. How can you think you're not worth saving?" "Because I failed," he whispered. "I failed my daughter, my wife, everyone who trusted me. All I had left was my mind. And now, even that's..." He gestured helplessly to his head. "The years on the street, the drugs, the trauma. I can't think clearly anymore. I can't do mathematics. I'm just a ghost." Maya pulled out her phone. She showed him her AP Calculus practice exam. Perfect score. "You taught me this. In 6 weeks, sitting on pavement behind a convenience store, you taught me what my actual teacher couldn't in 8 months. Your mind is still brilliant, Dr. Pierce. You just forgot to believe it." He looked at the screen, then at her, and something shifted in his expression. "Perfect score?" "Perfect, because of you. And now I'm going to Stanford on a full scholarship. I'm going to study mathematics because you showed me it was beautiful. You changed my life. That's not failure. That's the opposite of failure." For the first time, Maya saw Jonathan Pierce cry. Not the quiet tears of despair, but huge, gasping sobs of a man who'd been holding himself together with wire and will for 25 years. Lily held one of his hands. Maya held the other, and they let him break. It wasn't the historical abuse charges. Those were too old, too hard to prove. It was current crimes that brought him down. The immigration investigation had uncovered active trafficking, his second wife's testimony about financial fraud, a pattern of bribery and falsified documents that made the case against him airtight. The media circus was intense. Maya's Twitter thread became a movement. Documentarians contacted her. Podcasts wanted interviews. But Maya only agreed to one press conference, scheduled for her high school graduation. That's where this story began, with Maya standing at a podium, cameras flashing, revealing the truth about the homeless man behind the 7-Eleven. But that's not where the story ends. Jonathan Pierce didn't go back to MIT. He didn't even try to clear his legal record. The process would take years, cost money he didn't have, and couldn't undo the damage already done. But something else happened. Something unexpected. The physics department at Stanford offered him a position. Not as a professor. His criminal record made that impossible. But as a research associate, working on theoretical problems under the mentorship of Dr. Sarah Chen, the law professor who'd first taken Maya's call. "We have too many rules about who deserves second chances," Dr. Chen said at the press conference announcing the appointment. "This man lost everything for an act of heroism. The least we can do is give him a chance to contribute to mathematics again." Jonathan accepted. He moved into a small apartment funded by a GoFundMe campaign that raised $200,000 in 3 days. He started therapy, real therapy, for the first time. He began the slow process of rebuilding a self that had been shattered so completely he'd forgotten it was possible to put the pieces back together. His daughter didn't forgive him, not immediately. But she agreed to meet him for coffee 6 months after the press conference. Maya wasn't there. This was between them. But Lily told her later what Jonathan had said, that Emily's mother didn't drink herself to death because she believed he was guilty, but because she knew he was innocent and couldn't bear what his choice had cost their family. He told her the truth, Lily explained. His wife knew. She knew why he took the plea, knew about your mother, knew everything. And she divorced him anyway, because she couldn't forgive him for choosing to save a stranger over protecting their family. She didn't die of betrayal. She died of guilt, knowing she'd abandoned a man who was truly heroic. Emily Pierce Watson didn't reconcile with her father overnight, but she stopped hating him. That was a start. As for Maya, she went to Stanford that fall. She declared a double major in mathematics and public policy. Her first-year research project was titled Structural Barriers to Exoneration: How Power Protects Predators. Her faculty advisor was Dr. Jonathan Pierce. She visited her mother every weekend. Lily had quit her night custodian job to testify at Robert Wong's trial, and the publicity had brought unexpected opportunities. A victims' advocacy group hired her as an outreach coordinator. She started speaking at schools about recognizing abuse, about having the courage to speak even when you're terrified. Mother and daughter had dinner with Jonathan once a month, the three of them bound together by trauma transformed into purpose. "Do you regret it?" Maya asked him once during one of those dinners. "Everything you lost. Was it worth it?" Jonathan thought for a long time. "I regret that my daughter grew up without a father. I regret my wife's suffering. I regret the years I lost to addiction and homelessness. But do I regret the choice I made that day, to believe a 16-year-old girl and protect her?" He looked at Lily, who was laughing at something on her phone, her face lighter than Maya had ever seen it. "No, I don't regret that. Even though it cost you everything?" "It didn't cost me everything. It cost me one version of my life, the successful one I'd planned. But it gave me something else. The knowledge that when it mattered most, I chose correctly. I chose humanity over self-interest. How many people can say that about the worst moment of their lives?" Maya didn't have an answer for that. But later, writing her college essay about the experience, she tried to capture what she'd learned. We tell ourselves that one person can't change anything, that systems are too big, that power always wins, that speaking truth is pointless. But I watched a 24-year-old teaching assistant destroy his life to save a child. I watched my mother survive 2 decades of silence to finally speak. I watched a broken man teach calculus on a sidewalk because he still believed knowledge was beautiful. The homeless man who taught me mathematics also taught me this: courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the choice to act despite knowing the cost. Dr. Pierce knew he'd lose everything. He chose to lose it anyway. That's not tragedy. That's heroism. And the fact that it took 25 years for anyone to recognize it just means we need to be better at seeing heroes in unexpected places. Maya Chen graduated from Stanford with highest honors. She'd been accepted to Harvard, law, but deferred for a year to work with the Innocence Project. Jonathan Pierce published his first new mathematical paper in 27 years, a breakthrough in number theory that made waves in academic circles. His daughter attended his lecture at Berkeley, sitting in the back row but staying for the entire talk. Lily Chen married a social worker she'd met at the victims' advocacy group. Jonathan walked her down the aisle, and if anyone thought it was strange that a formerly homeless man was giving away the bride, they were too polite to say so. Robert Wong was serving 15 years in federal prison, 3 other victims had come forward, inspired by Maya's story. His construction company collapsed, assets seized. His current wife divorced him and donated their house to a shelter for trafficking survivors. The 7-Eleven where Maya first met Jonathan was torn down to build condos, but the company put up a plaque at the spot where he used to sit. Here, Dr. Jonathan Pierce taught mathematics to anyone who asked. The universe speaks in numbers. He helped us listen. It wasn't the ending anyone had planned. Jonathan would never fully recover his career. Emily would never get back the childhood she lost. Lily would never stop having nightmares about her uncle. Maya would never stop being angry that justice took 25 years to arrive. But sometimes, the point isn't the ending. Sometimes the point is what we choose in the middle of the story, when the outcome is uncertain and the cost is clear. Jonathan Pierce chose to protect a child at the cost of everything he had. That choice rippled forward in ways he couldn't have predicted, creating a daughter who wouldn't exist otherwise, inspiring a movement for victims of trafficking, changing laws about how we treat wrongful convictions. One person really did change everything. He just had to lose himself first to do it. Maya thinks about that sometimes when she's working late on a brief for the Innocence Project. She thinks about the night she dropped her calculus homework and a homeless man corrected her derivative. She thinks about all the people who walked past him every day, seeing nothing but another invisible casualty of a system that discards the vulnerable. She thinks about how close she came to walking past him too, and she makes herself a promise to see people, to look past the surface to the humanity beneath, to recognize that everyone has a story, and some of those stories are acts of quiet heroism that no one's bothered to read. The homeless man who taught her calculus also taught her something more important, that we are not defined by what happens to us, but by what we choose to do about it. That sacrifice can be redemption. The 25 years isn't too long to wait for truth, and that sometimes the people society throws away are the ones most worth saving, because they're the ones who already know how to save others. On the day Maya argued her first case before the California Supreme Court, a wrongful conviction case involving a teacher falsely accused of abuse, 2 people sat in the gallery watching. One was her mother, Lily, who'd taken the day off work and wore her best dress. The other was Dr. Jonathan Pierce, now 63 years old, with clear eyes and steady hands and a life rebuilt from ruins. When Maya finished her argument, the justices thanked her. She gathered her notes with shaking hands, overwhelmed by the magnitude of the moment. She looked back at the gallery, at the 2 people who'd taught her everything that mattered, her mother, who'd shown her survival, and her teacher, who'd shown her sacrifice. They were both crying and smiling. And in that moment, Maya understood something she'd been trying to articulate since she was 17 years old. Redemption isn't about erasing the past, it's about honoring it, taking the worst thing that ever happened and transforming it into fuel for something better. The homeless man taught her calculus, but the lesson that changed her life had nothing to do with mathematics. It was this: we are all capable of heroism. We are all capable of destroying ourselves to save others. The question isn't whether we have that capacity. The question is whether we'll use it when the moment comes, and whether anyone will remember, after we're gone, that we tried.